Hello and welcome to the Meeting Space, the podcast that's your backstage pass to the world of meetings and events. If you are a corporate or association executive and you have anything to do with event planning and decision making in the event planning, then you are in the right place. I am your host, Magdalena Bonelli, and I am here to be your guide, your go-to source for all things meetings and events. I have been in this game for over 2 decades. I have seen it all, from the days of flip charts and overhead projectors to the cutting-edge tech-driven extravaganzas we have today. My experience isn't just a number. It's a wealth of knowledge, and I am ready to spill the beans on what works, what's hot, and what's going to take your events to the next level. So hit that subscribe now button wherever you are listening to this podcast and become part of our meeting and event revolution. Join me as we dive deep into the industry's beating heart, and I promise you will not want to miss a minute. Today, I am sitting with Jonathan Kazarian. He is the CEO of Accelevents. Welcome, Jonathan. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story, sharing your advice and knowledge with me and with the rest of the listeners. So we will jump right in. And I usually start the podcast with the background of the guests that are here. So can you tell me a little bit and the listeners, how did you got into meetings and events and then being the CEO of very successful event tech company?
Yeah, so it was sort of by accident, but I feel like a lot of tech companies kind of start that way. I had been hosting a number of call them gatherings, right? More in the social realm than anything else throughout college and a little bit thereafter. But after college, I went into finance, and at the company I was working at, had the opportunity to host some investor events and really enjoyed that aspect of what I was doing more than anything else I was doing. At the same time, my cousin got diagnosed with cancer at the age of 17. I wanted to do something for her and knew that I was half decent at, hosting events. So ended up renting out the aquarium in Boston where I live. And I hosted an 840 person fundraiser. Wow. So going into that event, I was trying to find technology to help facilitate different aspects. Everything I looked at was either crazy expensive, the support was non-existent, or it was just like really old, crappy tech. And it wasn't an experience that I wanted to put forward for my guests. So that kind of kicked off my foray. So, had a bit of a tech background, worked with a friend who had even more of a tech background. And we launched the first version of our platform. It was very much a feature at that point. And we got really good feedback from the attendees, from the organization, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, that we put the event on for, and started to get more and more demand for it. As we picked up steam there, we then began to focus more on corporate events. And that led a lot more into the conference and trade show space. So that was the end of 2014. When I hosted that big fundraiser. Since then, it's been almost 10 years now. We've grown quite a bit. The platform's come a very long way. And, I can use that term platform today. I probably shouldn't use it referring to what we had back then. But we really built the company around this idea that technology needed to be there to make life easier, not harder for event organizers. And a big component of that is the way that you support your customers. A lot of events take place at, during nights and weekends. And since day one, we've had 24/7, 365 support. In the beginning, it wasn't quite 24/7 because I had to sleep, but there was times where I would pull over on the side of the highway to respond to customers. And we built a culture around that. And it's what allowed us to grow the way we have, because our customers look at us as more of a partner than just as a vendor. So we get that real-time feedback, and it drives everything that we do. So that's kind of a deep dive into where we came from.
That's amazing. And I don't know if you would like to share this, but how's your cousin doing?
Unfortunately, she passed away about 5 years ago.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I the story is very moving and amazing background. Tell me, Jonathan, now throughout the years, the growth of the company, you went from what I gathered, just you and that other friend to how many employees now?
Yeah. So we're about 60 folks globally today, a little bit more than that. Yeah. And I had a co-founder when I started. Him and we're still very good friends. Was at his wedding a year and a half ago. He was at my wedding, but ended up going separate ways.
Mhm.
And that worked out for the best. And then in terms of the employees today, we're very heavy on the development and the customer support side. There's
Mhm.
probably a lot of opportunity for us to, invest more in marketing and the sales motion. But um, we saw a lot of companies during the 2020, 2021 event tech boom that grew too fast, grew too fast for their valuations and grew too fast for their customers. And we want to grow at just the right speed where we're consistently innovating and evolving, but not taking off more than we can chew. And that's failing for any of our customers.
Yeah. Any kind of startup, that is the beauty and then the doom of growing too fast. You
Yeah.
you can just burn and fall. And I s- I have been following few companies from the time that the pandemic started and how they kind of went from just tiny little small businesses to big enterprises being bought out by many, conglomerate companies in the industry. And unfortunately, they don't exist anymore, or if they do, they are a part of somebody else's culture and company. So congrats that you and your employees are able to have that steady growth that supposedly is the magic behind all the madness.
It's,
So
you know, it's, it's intentional, right? It's not by accident. Um, we get to make our own decisions and do things on our timeline and the timeline that we think is best for our customers and our longevity because we don't have some, magic number that we have to force short-term decisions around. And I think one of the things that we've seen with the consolidation and the acquisitions that have taken place in our space is that there are several companies which are this hodgepodge of different solutions duct taped together. And ultimately, that leads to a really discombobulated experience for attendees and all of the other stakeholders. And there's the speakers, the exhibitors, the staff working the event, but then also for the event organizer who's setting all of that up. And our philosophy has always been organic product growth as well. So everything that we're building is also intentional. It's all using the same data system so that it is a seamless experience from start to finish for everybody who's touching any aspect of our platform.
what do you think are the biggest trends currently in event tech? And then also things that you see might be a challenge in on the market,
Yeah. So in terms of trends, are you looking around events or specifically event tech?
specifically around event tech.
Okay. Yeah. So the biggest trend we're seeing right now is a consolidation. 3, 4 years ago, there was like 300 players out there. Today, there's maybe 10 core players. And the definition of all in one that term has been thrown around for quite a while. I think a lot of people try to check a lot of boxes, but now in order to really own that, you have to do each of those components well. To knowing who you serve and what you're good at. I think we're going to actually see this consolidation continue. I think there's a number of other companies that maybe are either financially in a position to be around 5, 10 years from now, or there could be product gaps or product issues that might be really hard to recover from. So I think for a couple of reasons, we're going to see further consolidation. If I were purchasing event tech today, one of the things I would look at is this technology company consistently innovating? Are they releasing new features frequently? But also, is it a tech stack that is not old and antiquated? Is it something that's modern and can continue to be evolved upon? Because with technology, you hit a point where 90% of your efforts go into maintenance, not innovation. And you got to find that balancing point. The couple of the other components we're seeing from an event tech perspective, integrations continue to be critical. And it's not just the surface level integrations, it's deep, meaningful integrations, bi-directional integrations that allow people to use their entire event tech stack. And the reason for this is because what happened during the world of heavy virtual events is that there was this meshing of event marketers and demand gen folks, which led to a much higher reliance on the data that's derived from events and an evaluation of that data, as well as CFOs and CMOs looking at, is this event program actually generating a positive ROI for us? So there's just been a much more quantitative lens put on events. And I think we're going to see that continue to evolve as well. And then the final component I'd say is just the focus on hybrid events. I think it was something that for a while, everyone said all events are going virtual, and then it was all events are going to be hybrid. And then everyone went back to in person. And then there was actually a little bit of pushback. It's like, well, you know what? Travel's really expensive. Hotels are crazy. Companies are having a hard time getting budget for employees to go to events, but we still want to make noise. We still want to create access. And we're actually seeing some customers even that are, one of the reasons they're excited about working with us is because they can use one platform, not just for hybrid events, but also switching from events that are purely in person to purely virtual. And with some of their events on their calendar, on their program, they'll do in person one year and fully virtual the next, because the budget, it's just too expensive to be in person for every event.
Yes, I can. The prices, the inflation is going up, and I am sometimes just shocked by the price of flights, for example, to different cities in US, not even mention outside of US. So, the virtual part of events is here, and now it's just a matter of doing it well for the meeting planners. And sounds like your platform is definitely a competitor in that space. Tell our listeners a little bit more about Accelevents. What do they get with that platform? What is the platform helping them with? Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's everything that you need for starting with your event website and event marketing activities through registration, managing all of your speakers, exhibitors, your agenda, check-in and badge printing on site, mobile app for attendees, and the full-fledged virtual event platform. So it's all the pieces that you need in one unified tool, so that you're not spending time trying to stitch different solutions together, and you can focus on ensuring that attendees have the best possible experience and shift your effort elsewhere.
Well, that sounds very comprehensive. And as you mentioned, not a lot of all-in-one solutions have the intuitiveness and innovation.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just knocked on something that's very important, which is a lot of the all-in-one solutions, as I mentioned before, are duct taped together. So it feels like you're learning a new tool for each component that you're using. And what we're trying to do is just make it so that, frankly, event organizers can spend a lot less time in the event technology they're using, and again, focus on the bigger picture. Part of that also boils down to the way that we support our customers. 24/7, 365. At the end of every month, we publish our couple of stats on our performance there. And last month, our median response time on support was 19 seconds.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's about being there for customers and making sure those questions do get answered.
Yeah, sounds like you have a lot of ducks in a row with your solution for meeting and event planners. The reason why, and this is a little bit also backstory for the listeners, the reason why I invited you to this particular episode is I saw your comments on a post from Julius, and it was about increasing attendance at events and conferences, and also finding new audience. And, you can put it in the perspective of your platform, of course, how your platform can help meeting and event planners building the audience or even find a new audience for their conferences, as I am hearing that is one of the biggest challenges today for meeting an event planner.
I really can't put it in the context of our platform directly because maybe some platforms try to spin this narrative, but the reality is, unless it's like Eventbrite, where there is a marketplace and they're promoting events, and that's the B2C side, right? Not the corporate space.
Mm-hmm.
The platform itself isn't really going to do that much to drive attendance. Where it can assist is if you've got something like a referral marketing tool or integration within there, and there's a number of great platforms out there for that. But the other place that it can assist is going back to what I said before. The less time you have to spend managing your event, the more time you can spend marketing your event. And there's some marketing tools that are in there, like being able to build your landing pages and creating dynamic pages based on different audiences, or being able to create segments and sending out email blasts or push notifications. I mean, all of that I kind of consider as like the status quo. Any all-in-one platform is going to have that anyway. But again, it really comes down to freeing up that time so that the event organizer can spend more time on marketing than management.
And, what you have said right now, it reminded me of that indirect impact, that it's not maybe necessarily visible immediately, but if you use the tool, you will have easier time throughout meeting logistics versus, for example, sending 15 emails and monitoring. Because, for example, for me, when I plan a conference, the amount of emails that being sent about logistics, it's just keeping track of the emails is a job in itself, not mentioning all the other aspects of meeting planning. So if the meeting logistics can be bundled up on the one platform and in an easy to track way, I think that itself is a big advantage for the meeting and event planner. And
there's something I'll add though. Mm-hmm. There is another component which does drive additional registration and attendance. If you have an antiquated experience, right, technology that just feels old, you're setting the tone for your event. And attendees can only bet or invest in a couple of events per year, sometimes only one.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go to like that legacy, your parents' event, right? They want to go to the new hip event. And again, the registration experience is that first interaction they have with your event's brand. So you need to set the tone. If you have some like horrendous old Frankenstein registration process, you're sending the wrong message and you're hurting conversion. Think if you look at like what's happening with the direct to consumer DTC brands and Shopify and the way that consumer marketing occurs, there's a much, well, it leads B2B 10 years, always, right? Everything, every piece of technology today in the B2B space looks like what B2C technology looked like 10 years ago. And conversion rate optimization is something that consumer companies have nailed. And it's something that B2B brands are working towards, but maybe not fast enough.
It sounds to me like big focus on attendee journey, just like in B2C as a customer journey. Here, the focus is on, the speed, intuitiveness. And I have been working with a lot of different event tech. And one thing that really drives me crazy is the lack of intuitiveness of some of the platforms, where you need to go to 6 different places to change the same data in order for it to be displayed correctly at the end. And, just why can I not go to one spot and it automatically, if I change it here, it changes in all the other spots. And that to me is also a part of, like, maybe for you would be a customer journey, since the customer is the meeting and event planner, and how easy it is for them to build a registration website and plug in different widgets. So it seems like you have two to juggle of.
We do, absolutely. And we think about it in two different wheelhouses. There's the attendee journey, which you alluded to, and we put speakers and exhibitors in the same category. And then the other bucket we just call lovability. It's how much do our customers love using our platform to build their events?
Mhm.
And it's those little things that you mentioned. And when you have to update something in 6 places, the cause of that is often a platform that grew through acquisitions, or you have siloed teams building and they're not working in unison. There's nobody who's architecting the master vision of the product you're building. And when you get into the world of platforms in technology, you need to be very intentional about what you're building and the reusability of different components. There's not always that long-sighted vision when building. A lot of people are focused on the next quarter and short-term numbers. And that's where you see companies that might go up really fast and then they implode. There's a point where that starts to unravel.
Yeah, I totally hear that. I want to touch on one more thing, and this is, again, I saw it on LinkedIn. You mentioned organizing the gathering before the first one for the fundraising gala. And I think that if I saw it correctly, now you also do few in-person events nationwide with other event agencies and event companies. Tell me a little bit more about that, and what is the purpose of those events? And I will.
Yeah. So we partner with different companies in our space. Accelevents is one of the agencies that we work with, and Session Board and Ingo are some of the other companies that we partnered with to co-host these dinners. And these dinners are sort of intimate, roundtable style discussions, fully facilitated. We'll have like 25 to 35 people in the room, focus on a couple of topics. Everybody in the room speaks, and we're going around the country and we're hosting these. We actually have one in Chicago later this week. So it's just a great way for us to build our brand, but also to bring the community together at the large. And then also, we just learn so much from that conversation around what are the challenges and the pain points that our ICP, our customers are going through. And not necessarily while using our tech, but just doing their job every day. Where is there opportunities for us to streamline processes from them by introducing technology that can save them time? So it's been a great motion for us. I think, for organizations that probably everybody who's listening to this show already is hosting events at their company, but for organizations that may be new to hosting events, it's a great way to start small and start to build a reputation for the caliber of experience that you're able to generate. I highly encourage everybody to work with partners to do it instead of going at it alone. Reduce the cost, increases the reach of who you're going to be bringing to those events, and they can kind of co-sell and add credibility to you. But it's also, it's a great motion if you do want to host your own conference to build that audience and trust in advance. De-risks the experience.
Yeah. I was intrigued seeing those few posts on LinkedIn about that. So thank you for bringing this closer to the listeners. And I hope that they will now follow more closely when you guys will be having those events close to their places where they live or work. And quickly tell us, how often do those happen? And do you have a schedule that can be visited on a website? Where can people find more information?
Yeah, so we don't have a schedule posted. They're all invite only. So feel free to, if you're in a major city in the US, DM me and on LinkedIn, and, We'll see if we can get you to one of the dinners. We got Chicago this week. We've got LA, San Francisco, DC, New York, and Boston coming up throughout the remainder of this year. I'm sure I'm missing some, but those are the ones that come to mind.
Like your job is not busy enough.
But I try to be at all those dinners as well because, again, there's just so much to learn and I like contributing to the conversation as well. There's no pitching. I pitch way more on this podcast than I ever would at one of those dinners. There's no talking about product. It's really just talking about what's working in the industry and what can be improved.
It sounds amazing. And are there any plans on publishing findings somewhere?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
So after every dinner, the morning after, the first thing I do is write everything I've learned. And, if you're at one of those dinners, you'll see me. It's the only time I ever use a pen and paper, but I'm scribing notes the entire time. And I usually post like 12 to 20 different learnings from each of those dinners. So if you scroll back on my LinkedIn, you'll see a bunch of them with some great photos from the dinners as well.
Perfect. So whoever is not following you needs to start following you to learn what are the takeaways from those dinners. And Jonathan, just to wrap up very quickly, where do you see, and this is big picture, event and meetings industry, in which direction you see it going for the next few years, either with trends or with challenges? Kind of like if you had a crystal ball and could look into it and see the future, what kind of future do you see?
Yeah, I think overall, if I wasn't confident in this industry, I wouldn't be in it. But I think it is an incredible industry to be in, especially right now as digital marketing is eroding as compared to, 5-10 years ago, as AI is impacting content generation. The most important and powerful mechanism for marketing and communication we have is face-to-face. And that's what we're doing with events, right? We're bringing people together to learn from each other, to build relationships. So for those reasons, I'm incredibly excited about it. As for some of the risks, look, they're obvious, right? It's the costs, the continued inflation, the cost of travel, shrinking corporate budgets, and focus on efficiency. So all of those things are sort of going against us, but by and large, events work and they're going to continue to succeed and people are going to continue to attend.
Sounds awesome. I hope that it's exactly what you said. And because that means that I will have a job and you will have a steady income coming in as well. So yeah, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for this quick meeting and being my guest. I love learning from other people and definitely I learned a lot from our conversation today. And again, thank you for being willing to share your knowledge and your experience here.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. And I try to continuously share everything that I'm learning on LinkedIn. So if, we're not already connected on LinkedIn, and this goes to everybody who's listening, let's get connected.
Sounds great. Thank you, Jonathan.